Welcome to the ChartFactor Studio Introduction class. In this course, you will learn how to create your first visualizations using ChartFactor Studio Community Edition. Let's go to chartfactor.com to access ChartFactor Studio. Scroll down and click on the ChartFactor Studio button to open ChartFactor Studio. You are presented with the Welcome to ChartFactor Studio message. Let's click on New to create a new application. You are directed to a blank canvas. Once you are here, locate the Start icon on the lower right corner and click on it. You see a list of data providers. In this example, I will connect to my local Elasticsearch engine. Click on Elasticsearch to create a new data provider of this type. Let's name it My Data Engine, and for the URL, use localhost :9200. 9200 is the default Elasticsearch port. You may need to enter a different value if you've configured your Elasticsearch on a different port. Because I am also uploading a data file, I am going to enable file uploads by expanding the Enable File Upload section and clicking on the Enable box. You can now save. To upload data, click on the Upload icon and drag your CSV, TSV, or New Line Delimited JSON file to the drag and drop area. For this example, drag the London Fire Brigade.csv file provided with this class. Now you see a summary of the file analysis, sample file content, and field types and statistics. You can override settings, such as the number of lines analyzed, by clicking on the Override Settings icon. Let's continue by clicking on the Import button, located on the upper right side of the screen. Name it London Fire Brigade Calls Test and click on the Import button. You can see the data loading, and finally, 32,247 records imported. Now click on the Visualize Data button to go back on your dashboard page. Select your data provider, in this case, My Data Engine, and click on Data Sources. Now search for the dataset we just created, London Fire Brigade Calls Test, and select it. Now click on the Raw Data icon to bring the raw data table. Here, you can view all the records of your dataset. Let's save it by clicking on the Save icon. Let's change its name and call it Call Records. Let's make it wider for now to easily see more columns. We can make it narrower later if we need to. Now let's create a trend chart using the Date of Call field. We can duplicate the raw data table chart by hovering on its upper right corner and clicking on the Duplicate icon. Once duplicated, press the Edit icon, located also on the upper right side of the new widget. We are now back on the code editor. Select the Trend icon, and you have now an initial trend chart by borough code. Let's change the second group to use Date of Call instead. Also, let's change the granularity to day instead of year. For the metric, let's use count to show the number of calls. However, we just want a simple line for all the calls, so let's switch to the code editor by clicking on the code editor icon. The code editor window opens, and now we are going to make a few changes. Let's remove the borough code grouping. Leave the second group, which is Date of Call. Also remove group 1 from the group by function. Now click on the play icon to see how the trend looks. It's looking okay. So let's save it, and now you have our second visualization, which is called a trend chart. Let's resize it and place it anywhere we want. Let's call this Call Trend. Next, we're going to create a heat map to analyze the calls by source and type. For that, let's duplicate the Call Trend chart. Click on the Duplicate icon on the upper right corner of the chart. Once duplicated, go to the newly created widget and open its code editor by clicking on the Edit icon. Once in the code editor page, click on the Select Chart area and type Heat Map, then select it. Now we want to change our heat map configuration so it is grouped by incident group and incident type. Let's open the Metadata Information window by clicking on the information icon located on the top right area of our editor. Now let's find the incident group field. Open the filter box by clicking on the Name Filter button and type Incident. Now click on the incident group field to copy it to the clipboard. Then, just paste it in the code as the first attribute. Now let's do the same for incident type. The column is named Stop Code Description, so let's do the same as with the previous field. Click on the play icon to see how your code looks. It looks okay, so let's click on the save icon, and now we have a heat map in our dashboard. Let's resize it and position it anywhere we want, and let's name it Calls Source and Type. The next chart we are going to create is a distribution of calls by hour of the day. Again, let's start by duplicating our initial trend chart by clicking on its duplicate icon. Once duplicated, go to the newly created widget and open its code editor by clicking on the edit icon. Now click on the bars icon to create an initial bar chart. Then choose to group by hour of call. You can search for the field by typing part of its name and then selecting it. Instead of 10 hours, let's increase the limit to 24 hours. Let's sort by hour of call, and for sort direction, let's select ascending. Let's leave count of calls as the metric. Now let's change the color configuration. To do that, click on the Color tab. And let's change the number of classes to 2 and save your chart. You now have your third visualization. Let's name it Calls by Hour of the Day. The next chart we're going to create is a distribution of calls by borough. Let's start by duplicating the Calls by Hour of the Day chart. Click on the widget's duplicate icon, and now edit the new widget to change its group attribute to borough name. This time, let's sort the bars descending by count of calls. Now let's go to Settings to change the bar's orientation to horizontal and push the labels out. Much better. Next, let's configure color. Click on the Color tab and choose to color by metric. Choose 2 color classes, as with the previous chart, and pick a different color palette. Save it, and now you have created your fourth chart. Let's name it Number of Calls by Borough. This chart is now ready. Now, move and resize your charts to make them all fit. In addition to this bar chart, you may also like to have the information on the map of London. Let's create this visualization. Start by duplicating your number of calls by borough chart. Now edit it by clicking on its edit icon, and in the code editor, change the group attribute to proper_case, which is basically the borough name properly cased. Then click on the select chart area and type vector map. You can now see a vector map with its default shape, which is world. Let's use the shape setting to provide the location of your London GeoJSON file. For this example, we have the shape file available at this URL. Now let's press play. You can see that some boroughs are not colored. This is because we have not adjusted the group limit. Let's increase it to 100 and press play. It's looking good, but there are still a couple of items that we need to set up. First, let's enable the legend. Let's type here .set legend right. To learn more about legends, you can access the ChartFactor documentation by pressing the Help button and you can type legend in the search box. Let's go back to our map and press play. Better. Now let's configure the color ranges that are automatically calculated depending on the data. For this, let's type here color.autorange dynamic true. The dynamic flag tells ChartFactor to continue auto-calculating color ranges when the data changes, for example, due to user interactions. You can learn more about color options by opening the ChartFactor documentation using the help icon and typing color. Let's click on save, and now you have your 6th visualization. Move the charts so that they fit, and now our new chart is ready. Let's name it Borough Map with Number of Calls. Now, we also want to show the number of calls that exist in the dataset. Let's duplicate the map to create a KPI chart and edit the chart as usual. Type KPI on the Select Chart box and select it. You can see we have 32,247 transactions. Let's remove this transaction label by typing .set show labels false. Let's also increase the text size to 20. Click on the play button to see if the size looks okay, and save your new chart. Let's resize it, move it, and title it Number of Calls. As always, you can learn more about KPI settings by opening the ChartFactor documentation using the help icon and typing KPI. Finally, we want to add text to our dashboard. To do that, we simply select the markup widget icon and type our text. A high number of calls originate from the AFA, or automatic fire alarm. All of them are false alarms. We can remove the toolbar by clicking on the lock icon, and we can also edit the widget as usual to change anything. Let's remove the lock by setting lock to false. We click on the play button to see how it looks, and since it looks okay, let's save it. Now resize your widget and move it to this corner. We have now completed our initial dashboard. One final touch. The vector map is zoomable, but we would like to turn zooming off. Let's edit the widget and type .set enable zoom false. Now let's save it. You are now done with your first dashboard. Let's name it London Fire Brigade Class. And export it by clicking on the export icon. Save it, and now you can share it with your friends and coworkers when needed. In this class, we've imported call activity of the London Fire Brigade. We then created a number of visualizations to better understand the data. We can easily see we have 32,247 calls for a period of 3 months. We have a spike on February 23rd, lots of false alarm calls coming from the AFA system, 6 p.m. as the hour of most activity, and Westminster as the borough that generates the most number of calls. In our next class, we will add interactivity to our dashboard so that we can find even more insights more easily. See you next class.